710 ESPN, welcome to another edition of Trojan's Corner. Very excited today to welcome, with the Kamenetzky brothers, the guy in the middle, Colin Cowherd, host of The Herd on 710 ESPN, which you can hear, at least in our part of the world, from 7 to 10.
That guy is good.
He is.
I mean, he really is good.
I mean, people get out of their cars. They have nowhere to go, but they're up. This is LA. Nobody has anywhere to be at 7 in the morning, but people are in their cars just for you.
That's...
They purposely get into that LA commute with the traffic so they can spend more time with Uncle Colin.
Why do you think the 101 is so stacked?
It's long been considered my show.
And you love LA, by the way.
I would move here in 3 seconds. I always laugh when people, out east, they're like, oh, LA, and I'm like, yeah, it stinks. It's 84 today. It's terrible. Well, it's really expensive. So is any place nice in the world. That's why Libya is giving away condos and you're not.
And for the record, it is snowing at your house right now.
We will get 9 inches of snow at my house today.
So if anybody happens to be in the neighborhood, stop by, dig out Colin's driveway. You'd appreciate it.
It's awful.
All right, now with this is the biggest game that USC is probably going to play this year, bigger than Oregon,
Yes,
I think.
yes.
Obviously, everybody's focusing on the Matt Barkley, Andrew Luck matchup, but there's a lot more going on in this game than that. What are you focusing on with USC Stanford?
Well, I mean, Stanford's going to have some success running the ball on USC. They just are. The offense they run, double tights, 3 NFL guys up front. USC is young and small at linebacker. So they're going to have success running the ball on USC. USC is going to have success passing on Stanford, which is pretty average at corner. Lost their best linebacker. So, I mean, I think for USC to win today, they have to do something spectacular on special teams. They've got to win the turnover battle because there's a reason that Stanford's favored by 8 points here. Right now, they're a better team. They've got more juniors and seniors. They have the best quarterback in college maybe I've ever seen. So USC is going to have to do some things exceptionally well today.
When you talk about those turnovers, the special teams battle, is that in any way because maybe SC might be a little bit closer to Stanford than some people might realize, or is it just a matter of they have to do the spectacular, the unexpected, what you can't count on?
Stanford's interesting. I was telling guys this earlier today, that when Lane Kiffin took over, they didn't have any linebackers, and they weren't very fast, and they were exposed against teams that ran the spread like Washington and Oregon. So what USC did is they moved safeties like Deion Bailey down into the box. The problem is that works for everybody in this conference. It doesn't work for Stanford. So Stanford this year is a tough matchup for USC. They're small at linebacker. And, Stanford's going to come out, I can tell you right now. They are going to pound the ball on the ground. And they're going to set up play action. That's what they're going to do because they're going to have success running the football.
Go ahead, Andy.
For all you just mentioned, the pounding the ball, Stanford's plan. We keep talking so much about Andrew Luck. Lane Kiffin's been talking about him, describing him as
called him
perfect. I'm pretty sure I think he has an Andrew Luck fathead in his office.
Yes.
How great do you think he really is from what you've seen?
Well, I mean, generally when you look at a college player, you're like, okay, how do they throw the ball? Like Tim Tebow's great, doesn't throw the ball well. Vince Young, great, doesn't throw the ball well. He throws the ball spectacularly well. Okay, so did Jimmy Clausen. Is he big? He's spectacularly big. He's super competitive. Okay, but Jake Locker wasn't intellectually he's really brilliant. So you line things up. I remember when Peyton Manning came out. I can remember this. And I was in the SEC at the time covering it, and I hated Peyton Manning's feet. Very nervous feet, had not played well in big games, and I was like, he does everything right, but I hate the way he looks. He kind of wobbles back. You can start looking at Luck, and it's like he's Cam Newton, but with Cam there was always this. Is he just like a great athlete and ad-libbing, or will he study? He's Cam Newton, but his study habits are off and his dad was an NFL quarterback. So, I mean, there's nothing, even Matt Barkley, who's really good, you can look at Matt and go, he's not overly athletic, his arm is good, it's not great. Everything with Luck is an A+. So barring an injury or really bad NFL coaching, it's hard to see him not at least turning a franchise into a consistent 10-11 game team.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of guys who, like, if the NFL thing doesn't work out, they're going to go home and be an architect.
Right. I mean, he really is. If you go look at what works in the NFL today, you've really got to be smart. It's a really complex league, and in college football, you're limited to 17 hours of practice. So Cam Newton can kind of not be a film room junkie, and you can make it. But you get to the NFL, you can work as long as you want. And if you don't put hours in, you're going to get eaten alive. Even Cam Newton seeing it, you've got to sit in that room and study boring film. And that's what Luck does.
And the flip side of that, though, is Matt Barkley you tick off a lot of the same boxes with Matt Barkley in terms of what he does. And
he's smaller, doesn't have the arm.
Right, but not quite the same thing. So that's what I was going to ask you is where does he fall if Luck is the A-plus best quarterback to come out in a generation type guy? Where is Barkley in the should he come back, should he not come back?
Well, USC has never had a 3-time captain, and that's kind of amazing when you consider it. And that's something USC will probably lob up there as incentive. The feeling around the NFL, and I've asked everybody. I've asked Trent Dilfer, Herm Edwards. I asked all of these guys about Barkley. Now, Dilfer likes him, and Trent's like he's got a net quality. He's a great kid, but Barkley reminds me a little bit of Colt McCoy, who's struggling in the NFL, is that he's a little undersized and doesn't have a great arm. Now, Matt's an NFL quarterback. He will play in the league. There's no question. But is he going to be Drew Brees at 6'1.5", 6'2", or is he going to be Colt McCoy? You know, he's not Doug Flutie. He's not running around. So I see Matt as a late first, early second guy, better arm than Clausen, better work ethic than Clausen, but maybe somewhere between a Luck and a Clausen.
Does that change next year if he comes back?
That's what I was going to ask.
Andrew Luck is not in that class, and it's not, does he do himself a favor?
It's really interesting, and I got into this discussion with Dilfer, is that if Matt Barkley comes back, he may move up slots depending on who needs a quarterback. But when you look around the NFL, if Seattle, there's about 4 teams in the league that don't have a quarterback. You figure Luck's going this year.
He's going to one of them.
There's Landry Jones at Oklahoma goes somewhere.
Foles, I think, is a guy that people like out of Arizona.
And yes. So if Matt doesn't go, there's not a lot of teams that don't have a quarterback. So you know what happened to Aaron Rodgers? He sat there on the couch, and the reason he got drafted 23rd is everybody loved Aaron Rodgers, but after like this 7th pick, there was no spot for him. And so, the reality is with Matt Barkley is if you look around the NFL right now, there's only 4 teams left, Redskins, Seahawks, that don't have the guy.
Right. And in the meantime, if he stays an extra year, he's not going to get any taller. His arm may not get any stronger. I mean, there's only so much he can accomplish.
I'm not sure. At USC, if you stay an extra year, they can make you taller. This
then why did they do that when I was here? I'm
special things to people.
I am 5'8". I didn't know about this.
But the point's very interesting. Is a year going to help? It would have helped Cam Newton because he has more reps. Like Mark Sanchez could have absolutely added value with a year. I mean, Mark's problem was he had like 4 road games out of the college. It was like the kid had never played in the road. Cam Newton had like 4 road games. Those guys, an extra year helps. It's good to go to Oregon again, go to Stanford again, go to Washington, get that sense I can't audible, I'm kind of lost. I think Matt is what he is.
Right.
And he's tremendous in college. I think people see him in the NFL based on the system. He goes to Harbaugh, he's going to win a lot of games.
As we've seen what Harbaugh can do with Alex Smith in 2 months?
So, maybe he becomes Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Right.
Limited, but in the NFL 2011, Buffalo's offensive line's good. Matt can sit back there and throw darts.
Now, 2 or 3 years ago, you had said, financially, you got to go when you can go.
Got to go.
Now, how does the new agreement, this new CBA
changes everything?
NFL, what does that do?
Changes everything. Matt Barkley's not going to get rich. Well, he's going to get rich. But Matt Barkley, it used to be like when Matt Leinart didn't go to the NFL, it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Everybody knew it. You don't get that money back. Matt was, again, a guy that's arm wasn't going to get stronger. He was not overly mobile. Matt needed to go to the NFL, but he loved the college life, and he stayed.
He'd still be here if he could. If he could have worked that out, Matt Leinart would still be under center for USC.
But now, with a collective bargaining agreement, it's changed a lot of things. You're not going to get rich. And if you get drafted like 22nd, it's not changing Matt Barkley's life. I mean, he's going to buy a nice home in Seattle, but he's not making $88 million. So I think Matt Barkley, he comes from he's a good kid. Lane loves him. He's a really good kid, and Lane has told me, Lane's like, listen, he's an NFL quarterback. What kind do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want your legacy to be? But I think Mark Sanchez could have absolutely gained value here. I'm not sure Matt gains Mark Sanchez level value.
What's the relationship between games like this? Because they're gonna have a ton of tape on Barkley.
Yes.
Endless tape on him. But everybody looks at a game like Stanford, they'll look at Oregon and things like that, and add significance to them. What is it? Does it matter if he comes out and plays really well in this game, really well against Oregon?
No, listen, we all know what Matt does well. He's smart, hardworking, nicest kid. You saw him yesterday.
Oh.
He's as good as they get. I would guess he has a really good family. I mean, he's really grounded. He's a good student. He's got a good enough NFL arm. I don't think, here's the thing, is that when you go look at what Tim Tebow is doing, somebody believes in him. It's almost like I used to always joke when I was in radio and I just started out and I wanted to get these big jobs and somebody once told me, you need one guy to think that kid's good. It doesn't matter. A lot of guys passed on Howard Stern. All 3 networks passed on American Idol. Fox passed on it. Then the second time Fox said, we're going to go with American Idol. Great people have been, listen, think about this. Clay Matthews, now think about this. Clay Matthews didn't start at USC. He didn't start. They bring him in on 3rd down. Clay Matthews now is much better than Ray Maluga. He's better than Brian Cushing.
Better than everyone.
By the way, he didn't get a scholarship to USC. Clay Matthews, best NFL defensive player, couldn't get a Scully. Matt Castle couldn't get a snap at USC.
Yeah.
So in the NFL, if Belichick falls in love, I watch every Patriots game because I live in New England, and it's really amazing. Julian Edelman was a quarterback at Kent State, and Bill Belichick said, we're going to make him an intricate part of our offense. What? He didn't get a Big Ten offer. He played another position, and Bill Belichick said, I'm going to put him at wide receiver. What? So in the NFL, it's a much more academic game. It's a much more intellectual game because you have 80 hours of practice. And if somebody says, Matt Barkley can think cognitively, he works in my system.
And then you've also got a school like USC that has this track record of success for creating NFL products. Being associated with the school can help.
Well, and the Pac-10 uses progressive offenses. One of the things USC does, which is a real advantage, I've never understood why Rick Neuheisel's doing what he's doing. If you coach football in Southern California, high school football, or college football, the most sophisticated high school football coaching in the country is right here for quarterbacks. Nobody disputes it. The best high school quarterbacks, the best camps, the Elite 11 is right here. Why in God's name would you run the pistol at UCLA?
Nobody can figure this out.
You can go into UCLA, you can go into California high school football, Orange County, LA County, every year and get an NFL quarterback talent. And I'm going to run the pistol? One of the things USC does that's really smart is we're going to run a pro offense. So when we recruit you, Oregon can have the guy that can run. We're going to get the one kid every year in LA, last year they got 2, that are 6'4", 220, and they'll play in the... So USC will always have an NFL quarterback. UCLA is running the pistol.
With a guy who's supposed to be doing nothing but recruit quarterbacks.
If nothing against Rick, because I like Rick, but if at the very architecture of building a program in Southern California, you run a pro offense because you have all these great high school coaches here who are giving you unbelievable NFL-level quarterbacks.
Speaking of Rick and the pistol, for better or for worse of what's going on with him, he's had these recruiting classes that are considered very strong, and he's just not being able to utilize them or whatever. How much do you think this game matters for USC in terms of recruiting when it comes to next season and beyond?
I don't. USC is getting a real break this year. First of all, there's 2 things we know about Lane Kiffin. We know he can recruit. That's not disputed. We know his players get better. Barkley's gotten better. Robert Wood, the offensive line has mass. So we know that Lane's players get better. He's a very detailed. Pete Carroll was rah-rah. Pete wasn't overly detail-oriented, as we now know. Lane is not the personality. Lane is very detail-oriented. He's a film room junkie. He's not a booster guy. He's a film room. You watch that first half against Notre Dame. That was about as good of play calling. Literally, you have freshmen all over the field on a road game. Right. They didn't have a penalty. It was brilliant. I was at home watching, trying to guess. I couldn't figure. He had me fooled for 3 quarters. So, in the end, USC is think about this. USC has always gotten the best kids in LA, and yet until a year from now, they've never had good facilities. Oregon's got great facilities. Washington, Arizona. USC's facilities have been C- until this new groundbreaking. So you go to USC for a lot of reasons. Your buddies play there. Your parents can see you. The weather's great. You're playing there. You're on TV. You'll go to the NFL. I don't think game-to-game fluctuations matter for USC football. Now, if you have the wrong coach, if you had John Makovic like at Arizona, it hurts recruiting. But I think Lane and Ed Orgeron, Baxter, and the guys that can recruit, kids like them.
A couple more before I let you go. By the way, the guy in the middle, you probably know, that's Colin Cowherd. I'm Brian Kamenetzky. That's Andy Kamenetzky. You were here Friday afternoon. You were talking to Lane Kiffin. You were on campus, I should say, at SC. One of the things he said that I thought was really interesting is the scholarship issue is going to be a big one, something that people talk a lot about.
Yes.
He made a point of noting that they had, I believe it was 44 scholarship players on the field against Notre Dame. Next year they can go to a bowl. They can do everything they're supposed to be able to do. Historically, the scholarship thing has been a problem at other schools who have lost them. Will it be one here?
Yes. I don't. Now, let me wait for 2 or 3 years. I mean, if you have massive attrition physically, then it's a problem. You know, I talk to Lane about this all the time. And Lane said, you know, we'll say things similar to this as I'll take my 75 over Oregon State's 85. Think about the NFL. Now, the NFL is a more violent league than college. We would admit that it's a bigger, faster league. They have 55 players. Why do you need 7 receivers? If you smartly ease up on your schedule, don't play Ohio State, there's no point. There's no reason to send your troops up to Ohio State, get banged up, and lose 2 starters. Go play Kansas. Go play Syracuse. Play them here at the Coliseum. Don't do give-back games.
Well, don't have what happened last year when they couldn't hit during practice because they were too banged up.
You loosen up your schedule. Now that Colorado and Utah, historically not overly physical football teams, are in the conference, you can play one less out-of-conference game. You don't need to give up home dates. You play your games here. And as long as they're healthy at quarterback, think about this. Go look at the Pac-10 today. Outside of the University of Washington, who's elevating? UCLA's going down. Oregon, Washington State, Colorado, Utah are what they are. Arizona has a new coach. We don't know. Arizona State is what it is. They're not fully committed financially. Washington's elevating. Oregon is, this is probably as good as Oregon's going to get. And by the way, it's very good. But I mean, if you really look in this conference, who is financially committed that will pay an assistant coach $700,000? Washington, USC. That's it. And if you are willing to do that, you're going to get the best coaches. USC's always going to get the best quarterbacks. So if you have a depletion or an erosion of total number of scholarships, as long as you understand it and manipulate it, you can work around it. It's just like it's our economy. We have a little bit of a new economy. You just work around it. And I think USC can do that.
What do you think about Lane Kiffin as coach?
I like him. And it's hard for me because I like him personally. I'm sitting next to his wife for the game. Okay, so it's hard for me to be objective.
She's not standing out there,
right?
Just to be sure. Right.
No, so for me, I like Lane, and I think Lane is. Lane always tells me something that I am what I am. I'm not a high five guy. I'm not walk into the room and tell jokes guy. Lane, here, if you're a USC fan, here's the best thing about Lane. Lane can sit in a film room for hours. Yes. And he loves it. And if you're a USC fan, your head coach will never be outworked. I mean, Lane can go in that film room, turn the light off, sit there for 8 hours, and he's having the best time of his life.
He's the Kobe Bryant of coaches.
He just is a grinder, and he's a great-looking guy. He's got a beautiful family. He's making a lot of money. It'd be very easy to get a guy that's loose. And Lane is all about business, and that's a great thing if you're a USC fan.
And so, I guess my last question for you: at what point, or is there a point where he can make people spend less time comparing him to Pete Carroll?
Win games. I mean, this is Southern California. Again, this is not Pullman, Washington. And I've been to Pullman. You don't want to go to Pullman. Okay? In Pullman, there's nothing else to do. But in Southern California, I can go to the beach. I can go to the mountains. This is a great sports town. But people will bail on you In Cleveland, mediocrity sells because it's snowing. But in Los Angeles,
We got everything, baby.
it is a bandwagon
We got
town
everything.
because there's so many options socially to do. So you have to be good. Now, USC historically is good. Angels are pretty good. Lakers are pretty good. And they get great support. So the bottom line, as long as you're well-funded and winning, and USC again, when the Pac-10 added 2 more schools, they didn't add Oklahoma and Texas. They added Utah and Colorado. That should be 2 more wins a year. Listen, if Lane could have handpicked who they were bringing in, he would have gone, I'll take Colorado, I'll take Utah. You don't want Boise State. You know what I mean? You don't want...
Again, he ain't no dummy. He knows what he's doing.
I mean, Lane's like, he's not telling me that, but I mean, if I'm USC, I'm like, I'll take Utah, I'll take Colorado. Okay, now I'm going to go Washington. USC should have 6 W's a year,
Just in the
automatic.
conference.
Yeah, I mean, they should.
Colin Cowherd, ladies and gentlemen, host of the Herd, 7 to 10 on 710 ESPN. Thanks so much for coming by. I appreciate it.
Love our Los Angeles audience. You guys are great. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Probably talk too much.
No,
Not at all.